All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. I'm Devin with ClubExpress. Today's webinar is going to be on managing motorcycle clubs. But before we get started, I did want to go over a few housekeeping notes. All of the phones are muted. So if you have any questions, please enter those in the Zoom chat window. We have Sam in our chat who will help answer questions throughout the webinar. We also have Steve with us today, who is the sales associate responsible for all of our motorcycle clubs. So if you have questions, you can also reach out to him. I'll have his contact info up on the screen later in this video as well. If you're interested in other webinars or training videos, we have more of those on our YouTube channel. And we also love to get reviews from you, and I'll show you where to access those in just a second as well. So if you like attending our webinars, please feel free to go to clubexpress.com, where you can click on the calendar option and you'll see all of our upcoming webinars. You do not have to register ahead of time, but if you do, you can actually enter questions or things that you would like to see demonstrated during those webinars so that you can help guide the things that we are covering in our future webinars. When you're on our YouTube channel viewing any of our past videos, please subscribe. It's not just to bump up our subscriber count. We also like to notify people when we have new videos posted. And if you're subscribed, you'll see those on your YouTube feed. If you are using ClubExpress and you're enjoying it, please leave us a review. You can access those at clubexpress.com/reviews. We just really love to hear from our customers and help other people decide if ClubExpress is the right tool for them. Today, we're going to be talking about motorcycle clubs. We're going to be doing an overview on some of the tools that we find motorcycle clubs specifically use more frequently. It's more of a general overview to help people figure out why so many motorcycle clubs decide to go with ClubExpress. Most of the things we'll be touching on today have their own dedicated webinars, such as events and photo albums and collectibles. All have their own videos, but we'll be talking specifically about how motorcycle clubs take advantage of those. So we'll be looking at setting up release information for ride events. That's, to release your organization of liability when you're having events where people are riding their own bikes. We'll be looking at member photo albums. So this is a way for members of your organization to set up their own photo albums so they can share pictures either on their profile or in the member directory, or even on the photo albums option directly on your site. We'll also look at the collectibles module and how people configure that for bikes and automobiles so that people can share what bikes they have and the details of what they've done to their bikes, or if they're stock or factory, things of that sort. And then we'll take a quick look at the membership directory. And when we do that, we're going to look at how those photo albums and how those collectible items show up on the membership directory. And then the last item we'll cover is something that we found a lot of motorcycle clubs like to do is surveying their members to get, interest in upcoming events, and also do things like giveaways or merch giveaways, things of that kind of sort. So we'll be reviewing those today. The first thing we're going to cover is our event releases. So when you're creating an event, you can configure it so that there is a liability release for your members in order to register. And there's actually two ways to collect that release. You can set it up so that when members register for the event, they have to sign off on a release of your choosing before they're able to complete their registration. The second option is if someone shows up to an event and hasn't registered ahead of time, you can enable what's called a quick release. And this allows an administrator to use a mobile device or computer to collect a signature, a digital signature on their event, so that that person who showed up in person doesn't have to go through the full registration, but you're still able to have them sign off on that release so that you're not dealing with liability options down the road. So to demonstrate that, I'm going to go ahead and hop over to our demo site. And a quick note about our demo site today, this site pulls double duty both as a motorcycle club and a car club. So you'll see a few items that are kind of both related to motorcycles and cars today. So if you see that, don't be shocked. This is a dual purpose demo site. So right now I'm on our Schaumburg Bikes site, and I am logged in as our administrator, Martin Smith. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to our calendar by going to the control panel, our website tab, and I'm going to click on events. And if I go in here, I can search for upcoming events, and I'll see I have right now set up is a Schaumburg charity ride. And if I go ahead and click on the pencil to look at the settings for this event, I'll see I've already gone through most of the setup because we don't need to go over all of the setup of an event because we have, again, webinars that detail all of the setup. What we're looking at today is our policy section. So this last item on the menu here, when you're creating an event, the first page you're going to land on is this basic info option, this one right here. On this basic info page, we enable this policy section by clicking on cancellation and or release agreement down here in the specify what additional information is needed section. This is where we can control what portions of the event we need when we're setting it up. If we check this box and save, we will have this policy section available to us. When we click on this option right here, you can either do that by clicking on this green arrow, which may be gray if you haven't configured it just yet, but you can click on policy here, or you can go down to your list of items here and click on the pencil for our cancellation and release agreement. If we click on this pencil, this is where we can fill in the information for our release agreement. And there's a few options here. What you can do is you can say whether it is required for a release agreement for this event at all. You can say no, meaning that you don't need anyone to sign off on a release agreement in any way. You can say yes, excluding admins. What that means is if someone registers for this event, they would have to fill out the release agreement. But if an administrator signs someone else up for the event, the administrator won't be signing off on that release for them. Or yes, including admins, meaning if an administrator signs another member up, they can agree to that release agreement for the member. And then we also have our option right here. Once you have your release agreement enabled, the second option you will see is enable quick release, which is what turns on that tool for collecting signatures in person at an event. And if you simply switch that to yes, it will turn that feature on, and I will show you how to access that momentarily. And then we have our default options. We have two ways we can fill in the information for what they need to agree to in order to attend an event. If we say use default, it's going to pull whatever default we have set in the event options, which I will circle back to again momentarily. Or you can say no, use a custom agreement, and it will give you a blank section where you can give the agreement a name. And then you can fill in the details. A lot of our organizations will have some sort of legal counsel that will help them come up with the correct release information so that they are covered in the event of some sort of accident during their event. They can say, we agreed that this event, your liability is personal and not on the organization itself. Once you've configured those things, you can simply hit save down here. And now our event is configured to request a liability agreement when someone registers for this event. And what that looks like, if we go over to these icons over in the upper right-hand side, if I click on this eyeball here, this is where I can go to register for this event. I can go ahead and click register now. And I'm just going to skip through this event really quickly. But once we choose our registration type, we will see here is that name of that agreement that we gave it. And here are the details that we wrote out for what they are agreeing to. And then if they check this box, it'll say, I agree for myself and on behalf of everyone included in this registration. So what that means is when someone registers, they are only going to agree to this once, even if they have guests attending. So if they register 3 or 4 people, they only agree one time for their entire party attending that event. And then once they check this, they can continue on. If they do not check this box and hit next, it will tell them they cannot complete this registration without agreeing to the liability agreement. And then they would have to either cancel out of their registration or decide to agree to the terms of the event. The other way to collect liability agreements is to do a quick release, which is this option right here. This sign quick release is only going to show up for an administrator or someone who is a coordinator of an event. And when you click on this, what it will do is it will open up a smaller version, and we'll see here that same exact text for our liability release, and just a simple way for them to fill in their first name, last name, and email address. The intent of this is for an admin to do this on their phone. You would access it the same way. They would check this box saying, I agree, and then it does ask them for a signature, and they can either use their finger or a mouse to just draw their signature right here. And once you have signed it to your liking, they can hit save. Once that is saved, or once someone is registered, you can access who has filled out the release agreement by going back into the settings of our event. And in this little reports icon right here, so in this row of icons, it's usually the second one over. It looks like 3 journals stacked on top of each other. If we click that icon, we will see our quick release option. And this is going to show us who has signed that quick release. So I'll show you what that looks like. And so we'll see right here, we have a test signer. Here's the details of that release. Here is our first name and last name. And then over here is the signature that they signed with their finger. The other option is to come back to our reports. And then there's also this event registrations with waiver date. And this is simply a event registrations report, but it includes a column that says whether or not they have signed the waiver and when they signed that waiver for the event. So you can see exactly, you signed this waiver before you attended our event and released that liability. The next thing we're going to be looking at is member photo albums. We do allow for the creation of photo albums by members. It is something that your organization can toggle on and off in the options. There is an option to allow members to include their name in the album title. That means when the album title shows up, it would say, Devin's album instead of just album title. And then we also have the option to display member photo albums. What that does is it means when someone looks at your club's photo albums, it would also include all of the member photo albums. If you disable that, then it would only show the organization's photo albums. It would not show the member photo albums. Members can edit their own photo albums from their profile. And now I'm going to go step through these options on our demo site. So what we can do is we can go to our control panel. And first, we're going to take a look at the photo albums themselves. So they are also in the website tab of the control panel. And right here, we have photo albums. Once we click on this, we can see this is where we can add photo albums. Adding a photo album here will create a photo album for the organization, not for a specific member. If we choose photo album options, this is where we can say we want to allow member photo albums. And it's just a simple yes and no. And then we have the option of include member's name. That's that setting that would tie the member name to the photo album title. And then here is our yes, no, top or bottom option for displaying the member photo album in the organization's photo album list. So what you would do is if you wanted to show member photo albums along with your organization's photo albums, you can say I either want the member photo albums first or I want the member photo albums last, and that decides the priority with which you are holding those photo albums. If a member wants a photo album, what they can do is they can go to their profile. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up our member profile. So right now I'm logged in as Martin Smith. And if I come up here and click on my name in the top right, I can click on profile. And over here, I have my member profile. And in the bottom right, I have my website functions. This is where I will find these photo album options. And I can add a photo album. When you're adding it, you give it a name and menu text. Most people leave these two items the same. For example, I have my project bikes and my completed bikes. And I can say my album name may be project bikes, but the menu text says my project bikes. Menu text means if someone in the organization was to put this photo album as a menu item up here for your entire site, that is what it would display instead of the album name. Once you've created the album, you can then begin putting pictures on it. So what we can do is we can go look at my project bikes. Most of these are just test pictures. So these are all just stock photos that I've pulled. But if we look in here, these are the photos that are currently in this album of people working on bicycles. And we can go in here and either select photos to add them. This would show photos from the entire website that you can add to your photo album. You can do add one photo, which is going to let you upload one photo from your computer. Or you can do add multiple photos, which will allow you to select multiple images and upload them all at once. That is usually the most common way of adding photos to a photo album is this add multiple photos. Display sequence lets you decide the order that the photos show up. And you can also configure the album to change the album name or change that menu text here again. It's the same option as clicking that wrench on the previous page. You can just edit it from here as well. And then you can also decide on a description. So right here we have long description. So you could do things like enter, these are the bikes I'm working on. I plan to work on these types of bikes. Any descriptions you have for the album that people are viewing, it will show up when people look at that album. And to take a quick peek at what that album will look like, we can click on this eyeball right here. And now we can see and browse all of these photos of the bikes that are being worked on. For viewing on the site, right now I have photo albums disabled. So if I go to photo albums, I am only going to see, now most of these are cars, I'm only going to see the albums that the organization has created. But if we go back to our photo album options, again, going to our control panel, and going to website and photo albums, I can go to my options and say, I want to display my member photo albums at the top and save. And now if I go look at the organization's photo albums, I have more albums here to choose from. And you can see there are those motorcycle albums that were created under Martin Smith. So that is how you manage adding photo albums that are created by your members. Next, we're going to be looking at collectibles. I'm going to switch back to my PowerPoint. So collectibles is a really powerful tool to allow members to list the specific details of items they own. For a lot of our car clubs or boat clubs or motorcycle clubs, they can list the details of collectibles that they own. And you can also choose like things like make and model. You can describe what information you want to collect for that collectible. So if it's a car club, you can say, what is the make of your car? What is the model? What year is it? For motorcycles, the same kind of questions, make, model, color, any modifications. You can create all sorts of questions in the Collectibles module to get really granular with how people describe things in their collections. So let's go hop over to our Collectibles module and we'll take a look at it. So this is the Collectibles module. Again, this website is double duty as car and motorcycle. So you'll see some cars listed here, but here is Martin Smith's Arch. And so we can take a look at the details for this motorcycle. And a really cool thing when you're creating a collectible item is if you've already set up a member photo album, you can have your photo for this collectible link directly to an album. And so this album I created for Martin are multiple pictures of his Arch, and they can be linked to the collectible itself. So let's go ahead and walk through how to add a collectible. Or I'm sorry, first we're going to walk through how to configure collectibles, and then we'll walk through how to add them. So when we are on the control panel, collectibles can be found under the People tab. And we have our collectibles option right here. And this is where we can determine the options for what information we are collecting and also the properties of the types of collectibles people can receive. So under our options, we can name collectibles. So right now we're just calling them collectible. But if you are a motorcycle organization and people are only going to be collecting motorcycles, you can rename collectible to motorcycle. And then anytime it refers to collectibles elsewhere in the site, it'll say motorcycle instead of collectible. You can also determine whether these show up on the member profile. What that's talking about is whether members can add their own collectibles or if they have to be added by an administrator. For right now, we're allowing members to add their own collections. And then there's a few other options here that you can walk through. We do have a webinar that goes more into detail on the collectibles tool, but I'm going to skip over some of these for the sake of time and get more into actually showing how you can get granular with the information that people collect about their collections. So right here, back on this Collectibles Manager page, we have the properties option. This is a really, really powerful tool for managing collections because what you can do is you can add any sort of question you can think of for people to specify items in their collection. So right now we've got things like body number, links, the year of their bike, the make, the model, is it stock or custom? And the way we add those is simply by saying add question. And this is a very similar question creator to other parts of our site. So things like surveys, ad hoc forums, event questions, they all use the same question builder. So we can say this is going to be on page 1 of questions. You can actually have multiple pages of questions if you have a lot of information to collect. Most people just have 1 page of information for their collectibles, but if you want to collect really, really detailed information, you can actually create multiple pages of questions. And then the most important thing is to select your answer type. And so this is where you can do things like short text. If you just want people to type in their answer and, say, oh, this is this is a Harley, this is a BMW. But most people will do things like a select list, which when you do a select list, is actually very similar to what we're looking at right now. It is a drop-down list where they can choose from items that are listed for them. And so we can say a select list. And so if we were to do something like model, or we can do make, and then down here under the item list, we could list things like BMW, we could do Harley, and all of our other bike manufacturers. And when they are answering this question, they will get a drop-down option like this, and these will be the items that they can choose from. You can also control whether or not that response is required. And you can also choose to allow an other option, which means there will be one extra option at the bottom of this list that says other, where they can enter their own answer if it's some sort of make that's not listed in the options you've provided to them. You can also allow for comments so that people can say, yes, it's a BMW, but I've used parts from a different bike, or I've used parts from this shop, or maybe I, made it myself, but these are the parts that I used. And you can also do things like allow an emailing. If you do the allow an emailing option, when you're using the emailing tool, there will be an option to say, I want to email people that answered this question in a certain way. So I want to email everyone who owns a BMW, or I want to own everyone that owns a Harley, or, say if there's some sort of recall and you want to make sure that your members aren't using, a certain part, you can say, everyone that answered this question and is driving this model of bike, hey, go make sure that you get this part replaced. And then you can also control whether or not members can edit this. This is more used as a way for admins to control what type of information their members are entering. So they're not, fabricating information or changing collectibles. If you wanted to have more control over your members' ability to add and remove information from their collectibles list. And then searchable question, there is an option when you're looking at collectibles to search for other members' collections. And if you make it a searchable question, people can choose the option. They'll have the same drop-down list and say, I want to search only for, BMW bikes. And then only collections that match this answer will show up in the response. And so these are all of the questions we've entered. And I'll show you what that looks like for your members. So if I go back to Martin's profile, again, here in this Your Website Functions section, we have our collectibles right below photo albums. And we'll see all of our collections right here. If I choose to add a collectible, this is where I answer all of those questions that are created for me. So this is where I can say, here's my arch, and I can give it a collectible ID number. That could be a VIN number, or you could even not require a collectible ID number at all. I'll go ahead and just enter 1, 2, 3. And then I can choose the status. If I am not an administrator, when I choose a status, I believe I can only choose draft, and then it's up to an administrator to mark it as active. Since I am logged in as administrator, I can take it straight to active. We have the option for photos. And this is where you can either upload one photo from your computer of your collectible, or if you have member photo albums enabled, you'll have this extra option that says use photo album, and that member can select from their own photo albums. And now I can choose this photo album that I've created for my arch, and that will be linked to this collectible. And now when people view this collectible, they'll see that photo album linked to it. And then here are all of those questions. So here is that make question. And if I click on this, you'll see I have all of these options for the makes of bikes and automobiles, where I can choose whatever the make of my collectible is. And then I also have this other option that I mentioned before. If they select other, they can type in their own make or whatever question that they need to enter. Similar for model, there's all of my different models, and I can also choose other. And then they can do things like say, this is a stock model or this is a custom. There's a lot of different powerful tools you can create to ask questions and get really specific with the type of collectibles people are adding. And so you can get really detailed with it. And then we like to do with collectibles, the very last option we do is describe, and we give them this large text field where they can say, oh, I built this bike with my dad back in, 83, whatever they want to list, information about the collectible that's specific to them. So once you've added a collectible, not only will it show up here, but it's going to show up on your member directory page. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the member directory and see what it looks like when someone has both member photo albums and a collectible listed in their membership. So if we go to our member directory and we search for our members, we'll see Martin Smith is here listed as a member with information in his membership directory. If we click on Martin, we'll see here's his biography. Here's information he entered about himself. Here's his basic information that he has chosen to share. And then if we scroll further down, we'll see here are our photo albums. There's our completed bikes, our project bikes, our arch. And then we also have his collectibles where you can click on them to get more details. If you click on a collectible, it takes us into that module looking at that member's collection. And this is where we can get details on specific items. So this is a really powerful tool if you're trying to kind of engender a society in your organization that shares what they're working on, shares what items they have, shares pictures from previous events. So if someone, attends one of your events and it takes, a lot of pictures of their ride and then uploads a member album, they can list it here for other members to come see. And it's a great way for people to start conversations. Oh, I have that same bike, or, do you have spare parts for this type of thing? It's a great way for people to really get together and see what other people are working on in the same organization. It's just a great way to get your members more active with each other. And it also drives traffic to your site and keeps people really just shows the value of being a member of your organization. The last thing I wanted to talk about today is surveys. Something we find a lot of our organizations taking advantage of these days, especially with things being really virtual, are doing surveys to gauge interest in things. I've created two different types of surveys that I want to look at today. We have two surveys here. One is an event interest survey and one is a merch giveaway. The first one we're going to look at is this event interest. And what we've done here is we're just going to answer this question anonymously for now so that we don't have to enter our information. And it's just simply a survey that's going to ask your members, the types of routes they'd be interested in. And you can ask them the same types of questions we were asking in the collectibles module. But what this allows you to do is start conversations with your members about things they're interested in. So they can say, oh, I really like these routes, or last year was great. Or they can say, oh, there's another route that I really want to ride, and they can enter another option. And then we also, as always, allow comments on these so that people can fill in, how they're feeling about your organization and how they're feeling about the rides that you're taking. I've also done what here is just like a simple availability checkbox. So you can figure out when people are most available so that you can have the most successful events for your organization. And then just a simple yes, no of, have you been on a ride with us before? And I'll show you how I made that. What I'm going to do is go back to our control panel, and the surveys tool is under our communications module. So if we go to surveys, we have our list of surveys here. And if we take a look at when we add a survey, the creation of a survey starts out pretty simple. You just give it a title. You can also do things like election here. If you configure this as an election, it'll go ahead and preset a few of the settings for you and make things, anonymous and only vote once. For now, we're just creating a generic survey, so we're going to leave that unchecked. We'll give it a category. And then you can choose, is this survey for members only, or is this survey for all site users? If you do all site users, what that means is that someone can come into your site as a non-member without logging in and answer this survey. Or you can say this is members only, or even get as granular as saying like members of a certain subgroup or only members of a committee can join and do things like that. The survey text button, this is just the text that shows up under the button, which starts the survey. You can just say things like take survey or enter to win if you're doing some sort of contest or something of that sort. If you're doing an election, you could say vote. And then we have this close method. There are 3 different ways you can close a survey. By default, it's manual, meaning the survey will stay open for people to take until you come in back to this screen and set the survey to closed. If you do end date, what that means is everyone can keep taking the survey until the date that you set. So if you don't fill it out on, by the 18th, the morning of the 19th, this survey would no longer be available. And then the third option is max responses, where you can say, oh, we're going to give away, free memberships to the first 10 people that fill out this survey. And so you could say max response is 10. And then once you reach that number of responses, the survey is no longer available for people to take. And then there's this option for anonymous responses. This has 2 different functions. If you do not allowed, then obviously their names and information are tied to the responses of the survey. If you're doing an election type thing, or if you're doing a survey, of people's satisfaction with the organization and you want to let them know, we want to know how you're feeling about the club, and we're not going to, have any prejudice to you. If you say, I'm really not enjoying the organization, you can make it anonymous required so that people know their answers are anonymous. If you are allowing non-members, so if you do this all site users option, you have to have it as optional in order for that survey to function. If you do not allowed, then non-members will not be able to take the survey. There's just a few privacy options behind that, a few like legal privacy options behind the reason for that. Obviously, if you do optional, people can opt to still share their information. So you still will likely collect their user information filling out the survey. But if you do members only, you can do not allowed, meaning no matter the response is always going to be tied to that person. And then there's also this option to allow members to vote, i.e. take this survey multiple times. If you say no, then once you filled out the survey, if they try to take it again, it would stop them. If you say yes, then if someone takes this survey, they can just take it over and over, say, you can enter as many times to win as you like, or something of that sort. And then the last option here we have is contact person. This is who is going to be notified, who is responsible for this survey. So I can say myself, Martin Smith, is going to be responsible. And if you check this notify on completion, every time someone fills out this survey, Martin Smith is going to get an email saying, hey, a new person filled out your survey. Once the survey is created, you'll see it on this list of surveys here. And the second icon is the most important one you need to fill out. That's where you enter the actual questions that show up on your survey. So we'll take a look at this event interest survey that we created. And just like on the collectibles module, we have pages, so we can create multiple pages of survey questions that they would have to click through in order to complete the survey, or you can just simply add a question. And so we've got a few different types of questions here. We've got our checkbox list. Those are the options right here, similar to the select list. We've just listed all of the different routes. We've allowed other so that people can enter whatever route they are interested in. We have also allowed comments so that people can fill in the comments on the type of routes they're interested in, saying, oh, I really liked last year when we took the Natchez Trace route, but it'd be great if we could, do it backwards, or maybe take this side road next time, so that you can more readily, please your members. And then again, here's that same allow and emailings options where we can specify, I only want to talk to people that were interested in doing the Natchez Trace route. So we can set up like maybe a more limited event. And then again, here is that previously written question. This is a simple true false question where we have said true yes, false no. And so that gives them the option of saying, have you ridden with us before? And then it gives them just that binary option, yes or no. And then you can also choose things like a default. There's a few settings here. So I really do recommend playing around with surveys. It's a great way to communicate with your members. And then just to take a quick look at a really interesting way to use surveys is for like contests or giveaways, or just gauging really simple answers. So this merch giveaway here is just a simple enter to win kind of thing. So if they take the survey, The only question is, oh, you're giving away a shirt, select your shirt size, and then hit next. And that's it. That's all they needed to do to enter to win. And if they submit, now they are entered into this report, and you can go in and however you want to randomize that contest. Once they submit that response, they're on the list of people who have replied to this giveaway. And if you wanted to go back and review those responses, we can go into surveys here, go to our merch giveaway. And just like in events, we have this journal icon right here where we can click on it and say, I want to see the survey response list. It will generate a report. And now we can see that I, Martin Smith, responded to this survey. And then if you wanted answers, you can do things like, answer summary or formatted responses. There's all sorts of different reports you can run for this to see how people answered the questions to those questions. And you can also click on this item right here, which is going to take us to our survey results page. And we'll see that Martin Smith has answered. And we can click on this spyglass right here to look at his response. And we'll see there's the shirt size he entered of XL. And so we could simply print this list out or just look at this list and, flip a coin, roll a dice, use a random number generator to select your winner for a contest like that. All right. That is all I had to cover for our motorcycle clubs. As I said at the top, we do have more in-depth webinars and videos on pretty much everything I covered today. This is really just to get your brain moving on things about ways you can interact with your members and ways you can use your website to spark interest and bring value to your motorcycle club. I also did want to share this page. If you're joining us today or watching this video and you do not yet have a ClubExpress site set up, and you're interested in starting a motorcycle club with ClubExpress, we do have contact information for Steve. He is our dedicated salesperson. He can do demos for you on the things that we talked about today. And he can, the way you get in contact with him is just by emailing him at steve@clubexpress.com or reach out to him by phone. His phone number is listed right here, or you can just call the regular phone line listed on clubexpress.com and ask for Steve if you need a demo for a motorcycle club. Samantha, how are we doing on questions?
Yeah, so a lot of great info today. And we were wondering if you could walk us through enabling some of the modules. So, if they don't have collectibles or photo albums enabled, how would one do that through the control panel?
Absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and flip back to our Schaumburg Bike site. If you're interested in any of these modules and you don't have them enabled, what you can do is go to that corresponding section of your control panel. So let's say if we didn't have photo albums enabled, what we can do is go to the website tab of our control panel. And we have this configure button here in the upper right corner. And this is where we can turn on and off all of our modules. So we'll see on the left-hand side here, these are all of the modules that are available in the website tab. And right here, we see our photo albums option. And all we have to do is change the status of it to, active, inactive, disabled. So if it was currently disabled, if I turn it off temporarily, you'll see if I click on configure here, it shows up under this little line item, disabled modules. And we'll see photo albums here. And this is where we can go to turn it on and save. And once we save and close out of this, photo albums reappears on our control panel and we can begin configuring it.
And how might they add in the option for members to create their own photo albums?
So yeah, once you click on photo albums here, you can click on photo album options. And it's a simple yes, no question of, do you allow member photo albums? And once you turn that on, members will be able to enter their own photo albums just by going to their profile. You don't have to be an administrator to do that. So if you're logged in, administrator or not, and you click on your profile, it'll always be under your website functions. And that's where you'll see your photo albums. And just below that, again, is your collectibles.
And another question that came in that I don't actually know the answer of offhand, if questions are changed or added within collectibles and data's already been entered, how do those changes get handled on the back end?
So what'll happen, the answer that is entered will stay the same. So if I have a yes, no question and I've said no to it, but then someone comes in and changes that question to yes, maybe for some reason. For me, it would still say no. But if I went in and tried to change that answer, it would change to the only option I would have to save it would be yes or maybe. The way ClubExpress stores that information is actually in a text field. It's just how they can enter it. And so once it's entered, it'll stay that way for as long as you want, even if you change the question. But once that question is being edited, it can only be, you can't keep the same response if it's not a viable response for the type of question.
Even I learned something today. I think that's all of our questions. They've died down a little bit.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining me today. Please feel free to reach out to me. Again, Steve's contact information was on the screen. I'll share it one more time if you're interested in getting a demo for your incoming ClubExpress site. And thank you so much for joining, and we'll talk to you next week at our next webinar. Thank you so much.